September 27, 2020, the beginning of large-scale hostilities of a new type. This is a mixture of classic proxy hybrid wars and attacks by terrorist groups. Azerbaijan's attack on Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and Armenia is just the visible part. Behind the facade are Turkey, Israel, terrorists from the Middle East. The theater of military operations is gradually shifting from Syria to the South Caucasus. The reason is not just the long-standing conflict between Armenians and Azerbaijanis over Karabakh, but geopolitical expansion of Turkey. An attempt to intervene on the territory of the two Armenian states is only the first step.
Turkey
and Azerbaijan pose a great threat to the security in the South Caucasus. They are activated in different directions of the front in order to crush our common fist. But they do not take into account the fact that military action for us is a matter of defending the fatherland and ensuring the physical safety of citizens. We will do our best to prevent their further advancement. The goal of Azerbaijan and Turkey is to solve the problem with the help of a lightning war, which implies full control over Artsakh. But the Armenian armed forces have been preparing for different scenarios for years and have created defensive models that allow us to act effectively under any threat.
Turkey, through Azerbaijan, with the involvement of its regular officers, mercenary militants from Syria and Libya, as well as Israeli specialists, with their high-tech weapons, is trying to achieve the ultimate goal. This is to push Russia out of the region, rebuild the zone of influence, and spreading neo-Ottomanism to achieve the cherished dream, to create Great Turan.
Erdogan has drawn Azerbaijan into another military adventure. He has very large neo-Ottoman appetites, from Libya to the borders of China. This is his idea to restore the Ottoman Empire and create a pan-Turanian sultanate up to the Urals, so to speak. And this is his dream. This is his hope to take revenge from Russia. You remember, they fought 38 times, fought more than once in the Balkans. There were wars for the Crimea and especially wars for the Caucasus. Now, I think that Erdogan considered it a convenient moment. There are problems with Belarus, he has a certain weight already in Georgia, and he has already founded 2 military bases in Nakhichevan and on the Absheron Peninsula. It is just a very convenient moment to take a revengist step towards Russia, to knock Russia out of the South Caucasus and in general from the Caucasus.
Artsakh, together with Armenia today, is the last frontier on the road to the collapse of the greater Middle East. The Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict is rapidly developing into a multilateral, multi-level confrontation.
There are big changes in tactics. If in 2016 hostilities were preceded by sabotage wars, now before the outbreak of hostilities on the border, there was a relative calm for 2 years. This allowed Turkey and Azerbaijan to prepare their infrastructure and military forces well for the conduct of hostilities. The second difference is the intensity of the fire, the continuity of fierce battles. The third difference is striking civilians in populated areas, which is a war crime. In addition, if in 2016 Turkey helped Azerbaijan with weapons, training their military, now Turkey is directly developing military action plans, starting with recruiting fighters and ending with the management of different types of troops.
From the very first hours of the war, Turkey did not hide its involvement. The political establishment and the diplomatic elite made a number of statements about unconditional and full support for Azerbaijan. I think Turkey's political statements are reckless and dangerous. France is extremely concerned about the bellicose comments that Turkey made, which essentially remove any inhibitions from Azerbaijan. That we will not allow. I say absolutely clearly to Armenia and the Armenian people, France will play its role, and we will be vigilant towards respect of families, people, and sovereignty. We do not accept any statements contributing to escalation. The Turkish foreign minister, disregarding diplomatic rhetoric, openly said that the peace negotiations have lost their meaning. Now we want to solve the problem at the root.
The Turkish armed forces are directly involved in hostilities. Turkish President Erdogan dreams of rebuilding the Ottoman Empire. which destroyed its Armenian population during the First World War. 100 years later, Turkey returned to the South Caucasus to continue the Armenian genocide. With the help of Turkey, terrorists who have come from the Middle East to Nagorno-Karabakh are fighting on the side of Azerbaijan. How can someone suggest leaving the population of Nagorno-Karabakh defenseless in the face of terrorists and extremists? A truce can only be achieved if Turkey is forced to withdraw from the South Caucasus.
Dans le Haut-Karabakh.
I want to state clearly, we have information that indicates with certainty that fighters from jihadist groups have left the theater of military operations in Syria to join the armed operations in Karabakh. The fighters have transited through the Turkish city of Gaziantep.
First, the OSCE Minsk group tried to cool the militaristic fever of the Turkish-Azerbaijani tandem, and then the leaders of the co-chairing countries circulated a joint statement.
President of the Russian Federation Vladimir Putin, President of the United States of America Donald Trump, and President of the French Republic Emmanuel Macron, representing the OSCE Minsk Group co-chair countries, condemn in the strongest terms the escalation of violence on the line of contact in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict zone. We mourn the victims and express our condolences to the families of those killed and wounded. We call for an immediate end to hostilities between the armed forces of the parties involved. We also call on the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to immediately undertake commitments in good faith and without putting forward preconditions to resume negotiations on the essence of the settlement with the assistance of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs.
In response, the Turkish president said that for 30 years the OSCE Minsk Group was unable to resolve the Karabakh issue, and today it is trying to find a way to an armistice. It is unacceptable. Erdogan also noted that he discussed the situation with the presidents of Russia, the United States, and France, but there was no result. And if not, now is the time to achieve it. And Azerbaijan began to take steps. More than 20 US senators harshly condemned the Turkish aggression.
I strongly condemn Azerbaijan's attack on Nagorno-Karabakh, whose aggressive actions are supported by Turkey. The Trump administration must stop assisting Azerbaijan. Turkey's aiding Azerbaijan, providing military assistance and provocative statements to Armenia, and to undermine the mediation efforts of the United States, which should contribute to the establishment of peace in the region.
The Third Karabakh war zone once again clearly proved that it is impossible to live in peace next to Azerbaijan. Finding a common language is unrealistic. They lack universal human values and humanism. Attacks are carried out along the entire length of the front line. The targets of the Azerbaijani-Turkish military were not only the positions of the Artsakh Defense Army, but also civilians, as well as journalists working in the combat zone. Among the civilians, there are killed and wounded.
Azerbaijan quite intensively targeted the civilian population and civilian infrastructure. The strikes are being made on dozens of settlements, not only border ones, but also located deep in the rear, including cities and the capital Stepanakert. This means that they do it purposefully. This is a gross violation of the Geneva Conventions, violation of the rules of warfare, human rights to life, physical and psychological safety. In addition, for years, Azerbaijan has been pursuing a policy of hatred of Armenians. This is a manifestation of xenophobia, which is also a gross violation of international law.
The Office of the Ombudsman of Artsakh is collecting facts and evidence of Azerbaijan's attack on the civilian population and violation of international humanitarian law. The relevant reports will be sent to the UN, the European Court of Human Rights, and other international institutions.
2016 թվականի ապրիլի
In April 2016, Artsakh's human rights defender submitted a report to international structures on the atrocities then committed by Azerbaijan. However, the reaction, legal or political assessments of the international community were unsatisfactory. In addition, in this they have their share of the fault. After all, the lack of a proper assessment of what happened in April 2016 led to the fact that now Azerbaijan is violating international law with greater cruelty. I believe that the international community must exert on the state of Azerbaijan more tangible pressure.
Ana Galstyan was in the last month of her pregnancy. They decided to name the boy after the legendary commander, Monte Melkonyan. The first son was born on the 4-day war in 2016. On September 27th, on the first day of hostilities, she moved to her native village of Matagis. Her husband, a military man, returned home for a short time to visit his relatives. The massive shelling began about 7:30 in the morning.
We lay down on the floor, hiding under the bed, to somehow protect ourselves. Then we realized that the shelling was intensifying. We crawled out of the house, and at that moment, the shell hit the kitchen. On the street, the military ran up to us, helped us get to the shelter in the basement. The shelling stopped only after 3 hours. We got into the car, drove out of the village, and the shelling began again. The explosion rang out right in front of us. The car rolled over on its side. I lost consciousness and came to my senses already in the hospital. Then they told me that the child was born.
Manushak Sarkisyan, who took birth, was herself wounded in the First Karabakh War. It happened during the battle. Then the woman served as a military doctor. After going through the war, she learned to calm people down psychologically. In communication, she shows maternal care, encourages, often smiles, and says warm words. Many mothers named their daughters after her.
They called from the emergency service and informed that they had brought a pregnant woman with a shrapnel wound. Our director and I arrived there and performed an emergency cesarean section. Then the surgeons proceeded to the operation on Anna's hand. The only thing I wish for our people is to be strong, persistent, and live in peace.
Azerbaijan uses its entire arsenal, long-range howitzers and artillery installations, multiple launch rocket systems, Grad, Smerch, Uragan, heavy fire systems, Sansapelk, ballistic missiles, prohibited cluster bombs, tanks, and armored personnel carriers, airplanes, helicopters, reconnaissance and attack drones. The Armenian armed forces are delivering extremely precise, effective, and tough retaliatory strikes. The enemy suffers huge losses in manpower and military equipment.
We stand to the end. We will not ask for a truce. We must force the adversary into a truce. If we ask for a truce, it will be the end of Armenia, not just Artsakh. Because we are fighting not against Azerbaijan, but against Turkey. And Turkey is interested in the whole Armenian world in order to implement its pan-Turkic programs. We will beat the enemy until he sobers up. The future of our country, new generations, and our right to live on this land depends on us.
Martial law and general mobilization were declared in the Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and in Armenia. Volunteers from Armenia and the diaspora are arriving in Artsakh. The mood is high, the fighting spirit is high, and they go to the front with songs. The streets of Stepanakert are not crowded. It is very rare to meet men in the city. Almost everyone is on the front lines. The rear provides the army uninterruptedly. Many enterprises have redesigned production for military needs. The working hours were also increased from early morning till late evening.
ռեժիմ ենք աշխատում։
We work in full mode. Now we bake bread only for soldiers. There is no panic. We're working in an organized manner to provide our defenders with bread on time. My brother is also serving now. I constantly think about him and all our guys. I also often pray for them.
In the churches of Artsakh, prayers are now only about one thing: that the Lord would save the Armenian people and give them strength for victory.
Мы все-то рассчитываем на нашу армию, на ее несгибаемую волю.
We all rely on our army, its unwavering will, and we all pray for them that their decisive actions would lead us to an early peace, to a ceasefire. We must force this. We need the unity of the people to make every effort to strengthen the army, which is the guarantor of our stability, independence, and peace in general.
Максимум усилий, чтобы укрепить армию.
The new war in Artsakh has already surpassed all previous ones in scale. The theater of military operations is gradually moving to the territory of the Republic of Armenia. Azerbaijani and Turkish armed forces periodically inflict missile and airstrikes in different regions of Armenia.
2016 թվականի ապրիլյան մարտական գործողությունները
The failure of Azerbaijan during the hostilities in April 2016 in Artsakh and in July 2020 in the Davush direction led to a significant change in the regional balance in favor of Armenia. And this is contrary to the interests of Turkey, whose priority is to expand its presence in our region.
Large-scale hostilities for Armenia and Artsakh escalated into the patriotic war. All of the people rise to defend the motherland. The battle motto on everyone's lips is, "We will win." There is simply no alternative. Armenians will not allow a new genocide anymore.
Мы уже несколько тысяч лет живем на своей исторической родине, на своей земле.
We have lived for several thousand years in our historical homeland, on our land, and we have fought liberation wars for many centuries, defended our life, our faith, and identity. And the same thing continues today. And unfortunately, we are again forced to take up arms to defend our right to life on our historical land.
На своей исторической земле.